Well, hello, my friends, and happy Friday. Yesterday we talked about Daniel. We're going to go back to the book of Daniel today. And let me just lay a foundation and let you know that Daniel chapters 1 through 6 is kind of a chronological, historical time of different events that happened during Daniel's time there in Babylon. And then chapters 7 through 12 are prophecies that he had during that time. But we talked yesterday about chapters 1 to 3. Today I want to look at chapters 4, 5, and 6. In chapter number 4, Nebuchadnezzar has another dream. Now, this time he tells his men and his people that he has with him to interpret dreams. He tells them about the dream. Instead, before he didn't tell them, he said, you got to tell me what the dream is. But he tells them a dream and nobody could interpret it. But then he thinks of Daniel. Daniel has already interpreted one dream for him. So he calls on Daniel. And Daniel interprets the dream. This is in chapter number 4 now. And in this dream, Daniel basically tells about what's going to happen to Nebuchadnezzar if he don't change his ways. And he's hesitant about telling Nebuchadnezzar the dream, but he goes ahead and Nebuchadnezzar says, tell me what it is. And so he tells him the dream. Well, he tells that Nebuchadnezzar is going to live out in like a cow or an oxen or a sheep. He's going to eat the grass of the field and so on. Well, Nebuchadnezzar, he took the dream, and the scripture says a year later, he's out on his porch. I can see him out there, and he's talking. He's real proud and thinking to himself about all the things I've done. And at that moment, the prophecy of Daniel comes to pass, and he is cast out. He turns into a madman, so to speak. And for 3.5 years, approximately 3.5 years, we see that this man lives as an animal until he recognizes and realizes that God is the one true God. Now, I'm going to come back to this because it's important. There's a little phrase I want to give for our nugget here. But in chapter number 5, we have a man named Belshazzar. He has taken over. Nebuchadnezzar's gone. He's dead. Belshazzar becomes king, and Belshazzar sees some handwriting on the wall. He can't understand it. None of his chancellors and none of his people can interpret it. His magicians and so on, they can't interpret it. But there's a queen. The queen says, hey, there's a man named Daniel that he interpreted for your dad. Call in Daniel. Daniel comes in. He interprets the dream. And, of course, it says that Belshazzar's days are numbered. He's going to be killed and so on. And it happens that very night. And then in chapter number 6, a new king comes in. His name is Darius. And he is a ruler of the Medes and the Persians. Now, the Medes and the Persians took over Babylon when Belshazzar died. He was the last king there of Babylon. That kingdom's gone now. A new kingdom is coming into being, the Medes and the Persians. Daniel is still there, and he finds favor with Darius the king. And he has been serving all these years, many years. Daniel now in chapter number 6 is probably about 80 years old, but he's still serving God. Now, the king Darius is going to lift him up and give him a big position, just like he had before. But there was some men that were jealous, and the only way they could find a way to really destroy Daniel's reputation is through his worship of God. And so they make a deal with King Darius and say, look, why don't you say for 30 days nobody can worship any God but you? And he signs the deal, but Daniel, the scripture says, and I'm just kind of sharing instead of reading scriptures, but I'm going to read scripture in just a moment. But Daniel says, the scripture says that Daniel, he prayed 3 times a day like he'd always done, like he was used to. And so in other words, nothing changed. Daniel's whole life was a life of seeking God, praying to God, and serving God, no matter who was ruler, no matter what kind of edict they made that would try to destroy his faith and whatever, he served the Lord. This is chapter number 6. So most of you know the story about Daniel in the lion's den. And so they fixed the lion's den. Darius, he really liked Daniel, and he really regretted. He tried everything he could to keep Daniel from having to go in the lion's den, but he had already written, and it was so. So he says to Daniel, he said, may your God hear you. May your God deliver you. When you read the chapter, you'll see this. Now, God did deliver Daniel. And this is where I want to give us our nuggets today, both with Nebuchadnezzar and with Darius. And Nebuchadnezzar, after Nebuchadnezzar came out of the, shall I say, the time of being the madman, Nebuchadnezzar makes this statement. At the end of the days, I'm reading in chapter 4, verse 34. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me. And I blessed the Most High and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. This is a Gentile. This is a heathen, or it used to be a heathen, but now he recognizes God's desire was for him to know him. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will among the host of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand or say to him, what have you done? Nebuchadnezzar, at the end of his life, at the end of his reign, he realized that God, remember we talked yesterday about God never does anything without a purpose. Whoa, thunder here. But the purpose is that all men, both Jew and Gentile, will know God. Let me run over real quick over to chapter number 6 and read what Darius said. Darius says, he wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion, people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. And he who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered. So we see here, both with Nebuchadnezzar and with Darius, they recognize that God is the one true God. God reaches out to the Gentiles. He wants all men to be saved. He is not willing that any should perish. And so, my friends, may you, if you're watching today and you don't know God, I want to say there's only one true God. These kings of old recognized that there was only one true God. And I just want to challenge you. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. God bless you. We'll look forward to seeing you back here on Monday. Bye-bye.